Hi everyone, Radhe Radhe. In this video, we're going to be doing Canto 1, Chapter 15. And so let's call out to Bhagwan Shri Krishna and let's read Chapter 15. I read just the first few texts and I was already feeling so much sadness. Okay, so let's call out. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dear Bhagwan Shri Krishna, please don't ever leave us. I mean, you've left us on earth alone, but please come back. You've given us the mercy that you've come back through your holy names. Please help us access the holy names so that we can access you and so that we can place you in the altar of our hearts. Please don't leave us. Please don't leave us ever, even for a moment, because nothing else on this planet is even remotely um, useful or fruitful. Okay, so let's read the text. Chapter 15. The Pandavas retire timely. Text 1. Sutta Goswami said, Arjun, the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna, who was grief-stricken because of his strong feeling of separation from Krishna, over and above all Maharaj Yudhishthir's speculative enquiries. 2. Due to grief, Arjun's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore his body lost all luster. Now, remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply. 3. With great difficulty he checked the tears of grief that smeared his eyes. He was very distressed because Lord Krishna was out of his sight, and he increasingly felt affection for him. 4. Remembering Lord Krishna and his well wishes, benefactions, intimate familial relations, and his chariot driving, Arjun, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. 5. Arjun said, O king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me. So therefore my power is gone, my God has gone, and my power is gone. 6. I have lost him whose separation for a moment would render all universes unfavorable and void, like bodies without life. That's what I mean. We can't be separate for even a moment from Krishna, because he's there in our hearts as Paramatma. He's there in every atom as Paramatma, and he's there in our hearts also as Paramatma. And separation with him is just, everything is void, right? Like bodies without life. Sachinandan Maharaj says in his living name book that what is the thing that makes the body alive, and that is the spark, that is the soul. And he said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in the Harinam Chintamani 235, that the only two things that are alive on this planet is the holy names and the soul. And the holy names are always alive, and the soul is like barely alive. It's we are just barely alive until we meet the holy name, until the soul meets the holy name. Otherwise everything is just unfavorable and void. Text 7. Only by his merciful strength was I able to vanquish all lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupada for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Draupadi. So he's saying that everything that I have is because of Krishna. Text 8. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indradev, along with his demigod associates, and thus enable the fire god to devastate the Khandava forest. Only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from blazing Khandava forest, and thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of Rajasuya Yagya and paid you tributes. Text 9. Your respectable younger brother, who possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants, Bhim, killed by his grace Jarasandh, whose feet were worshipped by many kings. These kings had been brought for sacrifice in Jarasandh's Mahabhairava Yagya, but they were thus released. Later they paid tribute to your majesty. 10. It was only he who loosened the hair of all the wives of miscreants who dared open the cluster of your queen's hair, which had been nicely dressed and sanctified for the great Rajsuya sacrificial ceremony. At that time, she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in the eyes. Um, I'm not sure I know this story. 11. During our exile, Durvasa Muni, who eats with 10,000 disciples, intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. At that time, he, Krishna, simply by accepting the remnants of food, saved us. By his accepting food thus, the assemblies of Munis while bathing in the river felt sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were also satisfied. 12. It was by his influence. Now he's like glorifying Krishna and attributing everything that they want to Krishna, which is amazing, right? Because everything that we do is Krishna Bhagwan's um, gift. 12. It was by his influence only that in a fight I was able to astonish the personality of God, Lord Shiva, and his wife, the daughter of Mount Himalaya. Thus he, Lord Shiva, became pleased with me and awarded me his own weapon. Other demigods also delivered their respective weapons to me, and in addition I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half elevated seat. 13. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradev, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with the Gandiva bow to kill the demon named Nivat, Nivatakavacha. O king, descendant of Ajamedha, at the present moment I am bereft of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. 14. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I seated on the chariot, was able to cross it. And only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were the sources of all brilliance. 15. It was only he who withdrew the duration of my life from everyone, and who in the battlefield withdrew speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya, etc. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but he, Krishna, while going forward, did all of this. 16. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, Susharma, Shalya, Jayadratha, Bahalika all directed their invincible weapons against me, but by his grace they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, the supreme devotee of Lord Narasimhadev, was unaffected by weapons the demons used against him. 17. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water from my thirsty horses. It was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. 18. O king, his jokings and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as O son of Pritha, O friend, O king of Kuru dynasty, and all such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed. 19. Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit, and loiter together. And at the time of advertising oneself for acts of chivalry, sometimes, if there was any irregularity, I would reproach him by saying, my friend, you are very truthful. Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he, being the supreme soul, used to tolerate all these utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son. 20. O Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dear most well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. In his absence, I have been defeated by a number of infidel cowherd men while I was guarding the bodies of all the wives of Krishna. Oh, what? 21. I had the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I used them as the same Arjun to whom all kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them at the moment's notice have become null and void. It's exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on barren land. 22-23. O king, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwarka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they have all become intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought amongst themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. What? They were all cursed by the Brahmanas, and so they became intoxicated with wine, and everyone except 4 or 5 are gone. 24. Factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord God. Sometimes people kill one another, and other times they protect one another. 25-26. O king, as in the ocean, the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to enlighten the burden of the earth, has engaged the stronger Yadu to kill the weaker, bigger Yadu, and the bigger Yadu to kill the smaller. 27. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by God, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. 28. Suta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking about the instructions of the Lord which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship. He's talking about Gita or afterwards? And in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjun's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. 29. Arjun's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. 30. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjun forgot the instructions left by God. But factually, this was not the case. Again, he became Lord of his senses. 31. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the 3 modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from the material form. 32. So he lost all lamentation and he just firmly fixed his mind upon the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Upon hearing of Bhagavan Krishna's returning to his abode, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, Maharaj Yudhishthir decided to go back home, back to Godhead. So after hearing that Bhagavan Sri Krishna has left earth, he decided himself also to go back home, leave earth. 33. Kunti, after overhearing Arjun's telling of the end of Yadu dynasty and disappearing of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, engaged in the devotional service of the transcendental God with full attention and thus gained release from the course of material existence. 34. The Supreme Unborn, Lord Shri Krishna, caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus he relieved the burden from the world. This action was like picking a thorn with a thorn, although both are the same to the controller. Okay. So many people in the Yadu dynasty also left their bodies, and relieve the burden of the earth. I'm not sure what he means. 35. The Supreme Lord relinquished the body which he manifested to diminish the burden of the earth. Just like a magician, he relinquishes one body to accept different ones, like the fish incarnation and others. 36. When the personality of Godhead Krishna left this earthly planet in his self-same form, from that very day, Kali, who had partially appeared, had become fully manifest to create inauspicious conditions for those who are endowed with poor fund of knowledge. Yeah, me. 37. Maharaj Yudhishthir was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home and he dressed accordingly. 38. Thereafter, in the capital of Hastinapur, he enthroned his grandson, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all land bordered by the seas. Okay, so he put his grandson, Parikshit Maharaj, I'm guessing. 39. Then he posted Vajra, the son of Anuruddha, grandson of Krishna, at Mathura as the king of Shurasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhishthir performed a pra, Prajapati sacrifice and placed himself in the fire for quitting household life. Oh, he took his own life like that. 40. Maharaj Yudhishthir at once relinquished all his garments, belts, and ornaments of the royal order and became completely disinterested and unattached to everything. 41. Then he amalgamated all of the sense organs into the mind, and the mind into life, life into breathing, this total existence into the embodiment of five elements, and his body into death. Then, as pure self, he became free from the material conception of life. 42. Thus annihilating the gross body of five elements into the three qualitative modes of material nature, he merged them into one nescience and then absorbed that nescience into the self, in the self, Brahman, which is inexhaustible in all circumstances. What? He didn't go back to Golok Vrindavan. He went back to Brahman as well. 43. After that, Maharaj Yudhishthir, but he was a bhakt of Lord Shri Krishna. Why? I don't understand. After that, Maharaj Yudhishthir dressed himself in torn clothing, gave up eating all solid foods, voluntarily became dumb, and let his hair hang loose. All this combined to make him look like an urchin or madman with no occupation. He did not depend on his brothers for anything, and just like a deaf man, he heard nothing. 44. Oh, he didn't burn himself. Okay. 44. He then started towards the north, treading the path accepted by his forefathers and great men, to devote himself completely to the thought of God. And he lived in that way wherever he went. Okay. So he was 45. The younger brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthir observed that at the age of Kali had already arrived throughout the world and the citizens of kingdom were already affected by irreligious practice. Therefore, they decided to follow in the footsteps of their elder brother. 46. They had all performed all the principles of religion as a result, rightly decided that the lotus feet of Krishna are the supreme goal of all. Therefore, they all meditated upon his feet without interruption. 48, 40, 47, 48. Thus by pure consciousness due to constant devotional remembrance. This is a long, long chapter. I'm tired a little bit, but I'm using my voice for Bhagwan Shri Krishna, so I'm very happy. Thus, by pure consciousness, due to constant devotional remembrance, they attain the spiritual sky which is ruled over by Supreme Narayan, Lord Shri Krishna. This is attained only by those who meditate upon the one Supreme Lord without deviation. This abode of Lord Shri Krishna, known as Golok Vrindavan, cannot be attained by persons who are absorbed in the material conception of life, but the Pandavas, being completely washed of all material contamination, attain that abode in their very same bodies. Golok Vrindavan, this abode, cannot be attained by persons who are material, but Pandavas, all of them, attain that abode in their very same bodies. Vidur, 2049. With Vidur, while on pilgrimage, left his body at Prabhas. Because he was absorbed in the thought of Krishna, he was received by the denizens of the Pitralok planet, where he returned to his original post. She didn't go back to Golok Vrindavan? 50. Draupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. She knew well about Lord Vasudeva Krishna, God. Both she and Subhadra became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and attained the same results as their husbands. 51. The subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu for the ultimate goal of life, back to God, is fully auspicious and perfectly pure. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection of life. Please, yeah, thank you for this blessing. Thank you for this blessing. Oh, yes. Okay. That's it for this video, this chapter. We'll do Canto 1, Chapter 16 in the next video. Wish you a day filled with lots and lots of spiritual growth. Radhe Radhe.